We're going to do English, and then we're going to set the clock. So we're going to go ahead and say OK, and let's set our clock. So right now it is, it's actually 7:30 p.m. in the office, so a little bit later, 7:31. The date, we're going to set that. It's actually February 28th. Perfect. All right. So just to point out some basic things here, we're going to identify these menus and then these menus at the top. What we have first, of course, is our sewing menu. This is the main option to jump into sewing, which is what we'll cover kind of going forward here first. Then we'll move into embroidery. The Disney patterns, of course, this machine has over 190 built-in Disney patterns, which is pretty cool. And then the My Design Center. If you have a Baby Lock machine, this is called the IQ Designer. Or IQ Design. So I'll be able to show you some things here that apply to the Baby Lock Destiny, Solaris machine, Baby Lock Valiant, and of course the Brother Luminaire, Brother Dream machine, or PR1050X, which also has that same software on it. So definitely check that out. Those classes are coming up as well. If you look through the playlist, they're sequential. So at the top, we're going to have some different options here. We have our wireless or LAN key, LAN key at the top for jumping on the Wi-Fi signal. We've got the camera key, and this actually checks the needle location as it is shown in the screen through the built-in camera. That's an exclusive thing that Brother has and Baby Lock has, is the digital camera, which is nice. Shows you the exact needle drop. Of course, the page is the machine setting key, which we'll jump into, and I'm going to roll through the menus and show you every single setting on the machine. The video file, the video clip with the question mark, is your machine help key. And that's where you'll find your manual, videos, and lots of assistance, which will also orient you to so you can understand how to jump into some different help options in the machine. The pressure foot needle exchange key locks out the screen so you can change the needle or the pressure foot without having to worry about sewing your finger. This is a very powerful machine with high piercing power, so you don't want to get your finger underneath the needle. It's very unforgiving. Ask me how I know. The screen lock key will also lock the screen out, so it can't be touched, but you can still sew. So those are two different things. They're both kind of like safety mechanisms, but you might lock the screen out maybe if you're in class and somebody's next to the machine and they come in and start to touch things. It could create a problem while you're sewing. You have your hands in there, you're sewing, you don't want anything to happen. All right. The home key will always bring you back to this page here, so you can always press that to get back home, so to speak. If you ever need to change the time, you can press it down here. You can turn the clock display on or off very easily, and that's where you can change the time. So if you do see this and it just looks like a clock, out of the box it does this, go ahead and press that, and then you can turn it on, and you're good to go. Okay, so those are the basic home screen settings. So what we're going to go over next is using the machine settings in setting mode. We're going to jump into that and cover all of those, because just getting a machine like this, you want to know how to adjust every single setting on the machine, and we'll roll through that in the next video. You'll see up here at the top, the width control changes what the speed governor does. This guy over here, whether it's going to govern the speed or change the width, whether it's wide or narrow, of the zigzag there. And there's different reasons you'd want to do that on the fly while you're sewing. To make adjustments to your character or decorative stitches, you can actually change the vertical feed balance and the horizontal feed balance. And we're actually going to cover that in your decorative stitch class going further. There's actually a stitch that kind of looks like a balloon that you use these to adjust that stitch. So maybe if you have uneven fabric or weird fabric piles, you can adjust your feed balance in this menu for adjusting your decorative stitches, the sideways movement and the back and forth movement of your sewing. The pressure foot height, where you actually adjust the pressure foot height of the pressure foot, this is how far it goes up. So when you press the button to raise the foot up, default is 7.5, and you'll actually see when you change to a different setting, it's not blacked out anymore. 7.5 is a good standard. You could go a little bit taller than that if you wanted to. to raise it up all the way. Sometimes I run mine at 10 millimeters, so it's just a little bit higher. It's kind of nice to fit thicker things underneath there. And so then the pressure foot pressure is actually how much pressure we're pushing down on the fabric. So you can manually adjust this right here, which is nice. The higher the number, the greater the pressure will be. And so set the pressure at 3 for normal sewing. But another really cool feature is the automatic fabric sensor system. And I like to just sew with this on or turn this on because it's going to actually adjust the pressure of the pressure foot automatically based on resistance. So if you encounter a seam or something thick, the machine will actually adjust so the foot rises up on it, the pressure foot, and then sews over it. And then once it comes back down, it adjusts the pressure accordingly. So the thickness of the fabric is automatically detected basically with an internal sensor. It's called a stepper motor, and it's actually located in the top of the machine, up in the head of the machine, up in here, and it adjusts the pressure bar as far as how the machine goes up and down or how much pressure. Okay, and so it just adjusts it automatically for you. So I like to just turn this on, and then you may get into situations where you need to manually change it depending on what you're doing. Okay. So now we're going to jump into page 2. So we have our initial needle position. Some people like to start out in center needle position, and some people like to sew in the left-hand position. Because of the different markings on the plate, you may want to start out to the far left side to change your seam allowance off of where you're going. Or you may want to be on center and come off of right here to have like a 1/4 inch, let's say. And your 1/4 inch would actually be just to the edge of that pressure foot if you were on a center needle position. So some people may want to default to a center needle position that do more of that kind of sewing with like a 1/4 inch. Your pivot height is how high the pressure foot's going to go up when you're kneeled down. So for thicker fabrics where you're pivoting and turning, you would change this right here, and we're going to demonstrate that later. That's a pretty good standard setting as far as how high it needs to go. It's kind of like what you do with the freehand system or with this lever. And it's used to lift the pressure foot up and down for you automatically. The free motion height, if you free motion sew, maybe you're a quilter and you free motion your quilts, this is to change the height of the C foot or the foot that you use that's like a hovering foot. For that type of sewing, there's a foot that's not spring loaded, the C foot, and that foot actually you adjust it lower for a lower loft of batting and higher for thicker battings or higher lofts of projects where you're free motion sewing, and you need that to be changed. So that's where you actually change the height. If the foot is too low on the material, you can't move it around. It's going to restrict it. If it's too high, the fabric's going to move up and down with the needle and skip stitches. So you want to adjust it to it's just at the right height where you can move that fabric around. It's actually a really smooth running way to do free motion stitching because the foot isn't like the hopping foot where it's jumping up and down on the fabric. And that's actually the O foot right here. It's a spring-loaded foot that jumps up and down. For that foot, you don't really have to adjust your pressure bar height or your free motion height as much for that setting. The dual feed adjustment actually changes how fast your dual feed attachment moves. So the dual feed attachment has a roller on the bottom, and that roller moves to move the top fabric and transport it along with the feed teeth on the bottom that are moving the fabric along with the roller. So at a 0 point, this is going to move just as fast as the feed teeth on the bottom. They're the same speed. If you go in here, you can differentiate the speed. So you can slow down the dual feed or the move it foot, as brother calls it. For baby lock people, it's called a digital dual feed foot. But you could make it super slow, so it's moving a lot slower on top as it is on the bottom. Okay, and what that would do is you would see the bottom fabric transport faster, right? So if you were to make it faster, so if we went up in speed, like a 10, then we would see that top the top part would go a lot faster than the bottom part. It'd be going slow, and the top would be moving along really fast. Okay, so that's what that does. It differentiates the speed of the foot of the dual feed from the feed teeth in the bottom of the machine. Not to be confused with what a serger does. A serger has differential feed, but this is a little bit different. Okay, the automatic pressure foot. The auto down means that when you step on the foot pedal, the presser foot will automatically go down and the machine will sew. Okay. Press the scissors to trim. You can go ahead and turn that on as well. And basically what that is pressing the thread cutter button automatically lowers the pressure foot before cutting the thread. The pressure foot will be raised after the thread is cut. I like to turn this on. Okay. So let's jump over to the next menu. So we're looking at the digital dual feed foot, or I'm sorry, the multifunction foot control settings, our initial stitch page, and the reinforcement priority. So you can select whether utility stitches right here or the quilting stitches menu comes up first in your home screen when you go to the initial sewing page. So here I selected that. We're going to say okay and jump into this screen. And now we have our utility stitch screen, which is the #1 menu right here. Okay, so let's say I went ahead and selected the quilting stitch menu, said okay. Now when I go from the home page to sewing, our initial menu we're in is the Q menu up here. So you can see the difference, and we have our quilting stitches up right away. They've done this because the quilting industry is over $1 billion industry as of 2018, and there are so many quilters that some of them would just prefer to use the quilting stitches when they bring this up. They're not sewing garments or doing utilitarian sewing. They want their blanket stitch, stippling stitch, the serpentine stitch, the crazy quilt stitches, you know, and the variation of straight stitches with tie-offs, and even the hand-load quilt stitch right here. You know, quilters want to just go into that and kind of skip the minutia of the other stitches. So that's what that menu is. The reinforcement priority is when it's when it's set to on. The reinforcement stitches are sewn at the beginning or end of sewing for a reinforcement stitch pattern or a lock stitch, even when the reverse stitch button is pressed. So that's just going to help you with tie-offs being more automatic, basically. The multifunction foot controller, I can't select this because I don't have one plugged in right now. And you have to get one. It's actually an optional foot pedal with this machine. Not everybody cared about it in the last model or really did that much with it, so they just took it out of the package. Some people like it a lot, and you have this auxiliary foot pedal on the side and a heel tap as well. And that heel tap, you rock your foot forward to run the machine, of course, but then you rock your heel back on there for a different command. And then the auxiliary foot pedal will also to give a different command. What's cool in this menu is you can actually program these things to cut your thread or to raise the pressure foot up and down, lower the needle. There's a lot of different settings. And so I'll have to do another video on just that, just the multifunction foot controller, where we'll plug it in, we'll program it here. But for now, it's like we just opened the machine brand new, so we'll move on to the fourth menu. We can select a different language. We can dim the lights on the machine. We can brighten the lights on the machine. And you might ask, why would I do that? Why would I lower the lighting on the machine? And that's for shadows and the effect of shadows in areas where you're sewing, and you don't want those shadows to get in the way of what you're seeing. The screen display brightness, you can make the machine brighter. I turn the brightness up, generally speaking. It's just nicer. You can see things a little bit better. Or if that's too much, you have sensitive eyes, maybe you're even lower than the standard, and you turn that down just so it's easier on your eyes. Kind of depends on the lighting around the machine as well. The upper bobbin and thread sensor, you can actually turn these thread sensors off in this menu. Kind of a nice feature if you're doing some out-of-the-box things. You might be stitching without thread in the machine and you just want needle perforations. You may be doing bobbin work where there's cording going through the bobbin area, which there's a special plate for that on this machine, and we're actually going to do a tutorial a little bit later on that. So you can stitch that cording up into the bottom of the fabric. Generally, you want that on if you're sewing with thread and you want to know when your bobbin thread's going to run out. The machine speaker volume. You can make it louder. You can hear that. Or you can make it quieter. Or some people actually turn it off, and now you can see the machine's making no sound. I do actually like this to make sound, so I know when I touch a button, or maybe if I accidentally bumped something, I'll hear it beep. When that's turned off, you can very easily touch a button on this nice big screen, maybe while you're sewing, or you move your hand over and not even realize that you changed something. So I do like the machine to beep, so I know. The needle position or stitch placement. This is actually a really cool feature for precision sewing, and we're going to cover that in the sewing operation class as we progress forward. You select the operation of the needle position for two different sequences. One is like needle up, one is right above the fabric, so you can place the fabric right where the needle's going, or one is needle stop in the down position. Okay, so let's move on to menu 5. In menu 5, you'll see that you can actually turn off the opening screen, or that kind of like commercial that's played in the beginning. You can just tell it to go right to the home page, or you can go to the sewing embroidery screen right away, or you can do the opening screen, which is kind of that fun preview. So a lot of people, maybe they just want to go right to their home page, so they're right there, or go to their sewing embroidery screen right away, because they're just ready to sew right away. You can turn that on and off there. So in eco mode, you can jump into eco mode, and the nice thing about eco mode is it saves the machine power by setting the eco mode or shut off support mode, and you can tell it when. So you can say, I want eco mode to go into effect at 20 minutes, or I want it to go into effect at 40 minutes. So maybe you kind of know if you leave your machine for like an hour at a time, you can go ahead and set that up. Generally speaking, I leave it off because I like to show the machine when I'm showing it to customers to sell it. So I like it to be on and ready to go. The shut off support mode, when you turn this on, this is actually at a certain time, the machine is going to go ahead and shut off. So this is actually a nice feature to have on as well if you're trying to save power, or you don't want the machine to just be running all the time. Okay, it might save the electronics if there's a thunderstorm or something even. So the screensaver, you can go ahead and select when your screensaver is going to come on. Honestly, I like to turn this onto something kind of fun, and then maybe have it come on after about 30 minutes of inactivity, just in case. 5 minutes is a little fast, I think, for a screensaver. And then you can select your screensaver here. What's really cool is you can actually add your own image files into here, like your family, your friends, to go ahead and have this come on to have like a fun sequence. The default sequence is like what we see in the beginning, kind of that commercial that plays. If you want to change this, you can actually go in, pull an image off of a USB drive, and put it in so you have a sequence of images. Projects that you make, friends, family, it's really easy to put those in there, and go ahead and have something a little bit more custom. So you can actually change the shape of your pointer with the mouse pointer. Okay, and I'm actually going to show you this because this is pretty fun. So I have a wireless mouse here, and what we're going to do is pop the cover off of this. This is the USB inlet. This is what plugs in to the computer, or in this case, the sewing machine. We're going to plug a mouse into the sewing machine. I like the wireless mouse, so there's no cords in the way. Anymore, you can pick one of these up. Pretty inexpensive. This one in particular, I really like for the machine a lot. You can actually send me a comment or request one of these. These work really well with the Brother machine. So let me know if you're interested in that. So if we plug in our mouse, you want to plug it in to the USB port that actually looks like a mouse. It has that mouse with the USB right there. And then what happens is the pointer is actually going to come up, and then you can select what you want. So we'll turn our mouse on, and it may take a second for it to kick on. So let's go ahead and see, and we can select a different mouse pointer, and we'll see if we can get our battery going here. Either caps or lowercase, which is important for your code. So we'll do this. If you're ever nearby my office, please don't pirate my internet. Just kidding. All right, so we're gonna go to numbers here. There's also symbols. All right, and then we're gonna jump back over here. This is actually the code that was auto set up with the router. So we'll say okay. And now it's gonna try to jump on the signal. And it's good, we're on the Wi-Fi network. And you'll see when we get on the Wi-Fi network, that symbol actually turns blue in the top left-hand corner. So the machine name is just sewing machine. We're gonna change this to something a little bit more fun, because this is what you'll actually see on the network. Let's do the Luminaire. Isn't that fun? Let's say okay. Okay, so change the name, the status. We can reset the network from the machine. We're not going to do that because I don't want to reset my router right now. So there's all 11 settings pages. You know, so it's there's quite a bit you can do with the settings in the machine. You want to know how to fully customize your machine to your liking, how to change the settings when you're doing more creative things. It's super important. So join me in the next video. We're actually going to do some sewing, thread the machine. I'll show you some tricks on that as well and some tips that aren't in your manual. That's pretty much it for the initial basic orientation on the Brother Luminaire. And congratulations on your new machine. And if you have a Baby Lock Destiny or a Brother Dream machine or one of the 10 needles, some of these settings apply as well. So thanks for watching the video. You know, maybe filtering out some of the sewing stuff that I was talking about. All right. Okay, so since I know a lot of you don't use a mouse, we're going to go ahead and move forward through the menu into the projector settings. So this is the cool stuff, right? In this menu, you can select the brightness of the projector. So you actually go ahead and turn that on, and you'll see the colors that come up. And you can turn the brightness down. Maybe if you have like kind of a different shade of fabric, or you can turn the brightness up and you can see it's sequencing the colors so we can see what the projector is going to look like. So you can adjust that here. You have your background color here as well. So you can select whether to show the background color when using the projector function right here. So you go gray, or you can go white as a background color. And I'll show you more of that when we go into the projector settings. The pattern outline, select whether to display the outline of the pattern, like a zigzag, your straight stitch, your decorative stitch. You can turn that on or off. And I'll show you the difference when we kind of dive into that a little bit more. The pointer color, you can actually set the needle drop or where it's going to drop with a green, a white, or a red. It'll project exactly where the needle is going to drop. Okay, so that's really nice, especially, I like to use the red, it shows up a little bit better. This is a really nice setting, and now with the W foot, you don't have to have the laser sight on the W foot because it'll just project this for you without it. So that's a nice feature. The camera needle position setting, you can turn this on, so you can see right where the needle is in relationship to the camera. There's actually a little sticker you use to start the calibration, using a 7511 needle or a 9014. And so that's where you can calibrate that. Out of the factory, my experience has been this doesn't really need to be done. So it's not something that we'll worry about here. In the next menu, we're going to see that we can see the service count and the total stitch count. This is a 0 count machine because it's brand new out of the box. We haven't stitched on it yet. This is the serial number for the software, so the total number of stitches is above that at 0. The number is the internal machine number for the machine. Okay, so it's kind of like a serial number for the software. The version number is going to be the version that we're at currently. And there's actually an update available for this machine even past this, and so we'll do an update on that. And that'll be a separate video. I'll do that in the next, in this sequence of videos, we'll do that as far as our settings. Because you may buy one of these machines and they may have come out with an update while the machine was actually in the box right before you purchased it. They're always updating the machines with Brother, making them better and run faster. and updates are free. Upgrades cost money. Upgrades are different than updates. Okay, there is a difference there. So let's jump into the next menu. We can select our frame size. Okay, so we can select among 12 different embroidery frame displays. So we can jump into this and select which one we want. And this is all in millimeters. And you can actually change from millimeters to inches. So let's jump over to that. We'll do inches and jump into here. And now all of a sudden we can see the different measurements in inches. The 9.5 by 14, the grand 16 by 10 and 5/8 hoop, the biggest one that comes with this machine with the bigger throat space. We now have a bigger hoop size. So you can select the hoop size, which is nice because then you can go ahead and kind of set your patterns within that size, work within that size, the little 4x4 frame. You know, the 2 3/8 by 3/4 area. This is like a monogramming area, very small, much smaller area. So the thing about the grid lines is that you can activate grid lines now. And what's really cool is you can just select the grid lines from a menu on the side instead of scrolling through them now. And so they're right there. And you'll see some of these upgrades in the settings compared to the last model. It's a little bit easier to select settings as you want them. Okay. Another thing you'll notice is the finish on the machine is a matte finish. It actually looks a little bit cleaner. You know, and it doesn't scratch as easily either on the bed of the machine versus the high gloss that we used to have would scratch a lot with pins and that sort of thing. The matte finish doesn't scratch as much, so that's nice. The max embroidery speed, you can govern out the speed of embroidery in this menu, anywhere from 350 stitches a minute all the way up to 1,050. A lot of different ranges of speed in this menu now, which is nice. We can change our default embroidery tension. We can lessen the upper tension on the machine or increase the upper tension on the machine. Okay. Of course, the 0 point is the standard setting for the machine. That doesn't mean it has a 0 tension in the conventional sense. It just means it's at the standard factory setting. Okay. The embroidery foot height is kind of like the free motion height at how high the foot is based on the loft of the material we're embroidering. This can be adjusted here in this setting. And so we can adjust that there. If it's a project that's just one layer, like maybe wash away material or like a stitch and wash material, you can go down very low so the foot's right above it because it's only like one layer you're embroidering on. Let's say you're doing an in the hoop project, like an embroidery garden project or something. You would actually go ahead and raise it up higher because you'd have thicknesses and loft. You're putting all these materials on top of materials inside of it, and so you'd actually want to raise that. And of course the standard setting is highlighted in the black. The embroidery needle stop position, whether you want it to be down or up, maybe you have to adjust a project so you want it to stop in the down position. Generally speaking, you'll want the up position for embroidery because you're running a thread trimmer, the hoop has to move around, things like that. But you do have the option now to control that, which is nice. Again, you can change the inches from millimeters to units of inches. Your thread color, you can actually change and do the name of the color, like red, blue, green, that sort of thing, or the actual number based on the brand that you select. And now we have a lot more brands to choose from in here. We have Floriani, Iris Thread, Polyfast, Simplicity Pro, Gutermann, Isocord, Robertson Anton Rayon. That one's been in before. Robertson Anton Poly, Sulky, the Madeira Threads, Country's been in before, Embroidery, and Original. And of course, ISO with a lot of Floriani, so I'm going to change it to that. The embroidery background color, you can go in to change the color for the embroidery screen. Maybe you're dealing with a pattern that's white thread. A white background's not conducive to that, so you might go to black. You might be doing like a yellow and you want to have a green background so it really pops off of there. So this is kind of nice for placement to be able to change that. Your thumbnail background, same thing. If you're looking at a white pattern in a selection of maybe multiple white patterns here, you may choose black so you see them against a black background. Okay, so that's where you're going to change those two background colors. All right, one is for the main screen, so you can change that. One is for the thumbnail. A thumbnail is what's called a preview of multiple files. okay, in a file screen. So you can select those there. The thumbnail size, you may want them to be a lot larger, medium size, or really small. So it kind of depends on how many patterns you're looking at a time for the thumbnail size. The embroidery basting distance, so how far apart the basting stitches are. This machine has an automatic basting function to tack material down to the stabilizer and float your embroidery projects. So you can actually change this distance depending if you want it really far apart or a little bit closer together. You can go ahead and change this here. We have a pretty big range of options on our basting distances now, which is very nice. So we can select that there. The camera settings here to do the background image, the scan quality as far as how much time it takes to scan in the detail. Fine, if you're not in a hurry, is nice. Standard is a little bit faster. I like to keep it on fine, never really in a hurry, so I like to scan so I can really see what's on the screen and then place my embroidery design. You can delete the background image. If you've scanned, the machine will actually remember it, and maybe you want to get it out of there because you're trying to do something on the screen. You'd go in here to the number 10 menu and then delete that background image. The fabric thickness sensor. Okay, so this is another nice automatic feature where when you use the positioning sticker, the pattern on the thicker fabrics, the built-in camera is going to sense where the sticker is at and then adjust for thickness. Okay, so that's a kind of a nice feature to use for thicker projects, basically. And you'll use the little, what they call snowman sticker there. Okay, some people like to turn this off for the most part if they're doing just normal embroidery that they can hoop and they're not really floating a lot of thick things. And they're using the snowman sticker, or they're just scanning. This way they don't have to use the snowman sticker when they scan. Or when I scan, I turn it off for the most part. And it is off from the factory, as you can see, which is nice. The embroidery foot with LED pointer adjustment, you can actually adjust this. So the machine doesn't come with the W plus foot, but you can still use it with this if you'd like. You could purchase one and use it with the machine. And there's a slight adjustment for that. And what this is it's showing you where the needle drop position is. Now we're to the point where we can see the Wi-Fi settings of the machine. And I'm actually going to put this on my Wi-Fi signal so you can see how to do it. So let's go ahead and turn this on. And then what we're going to do is display the connected SSID. So let's go ahead and go to the wizard. And we're going to set the machine to connect wirelessly using our LAN function. So my network here in the office is the 2.4. And then we're going to put in our Super C